Mr. Khanna, thank you for joining us. How was the panel and what were the takeaways?
Oh, it was a very interesting and absorbing discussion. We discussed about the various Generation X, Generation Y and baby boomers at workplace and how does that impact regular working on a day-to-day basis and also at a strategic level. I think few things that came up. Of course, everyone felt that it's not really a crisis per se, when we talk of handling multiple generation, but it is a regular challenge which happens when you have multiple generations working together. And the reason for that, what we all debated, was because it depends on the context in which one has grown up, what be it India or be it globally, be it what's happening on the political, on the social front, or what's happening on the technology front, which has a strong bearing. I think it's similar to what's happening on millennials, which are gaining in majority in any organization, especially in technology world. With that taking place, I think the key thing is in terms of how we listen to them, how we understand and how we respond appropriately with them. And that's true of every generation that one works with.
All right. Any specific trend you have observed in the sector?
I would say firstly, because of technology coming in, the key thing that's happened is all organizations are now transparent. In HR world, we tend to talk about transparency and honesty. And we say that, when you're joining, you should understand the culture of the organization that you're joining. I think now that is really taking place because thanks to various social media, everything is out in the open. So you pretty much know an organization that you're going to be part of by going through what their earlier employees have said. And for HR people, professionals, the key thing is to ensure that the transparency is completely there. So whatever the experience you give to our internal employees, the same should be your EVP when you're looking outside, so that whoever is coming in knows that this is what I'm getting into. I think that's very important in terms of having the transparency and honesty. I think the other thing is learning from each generation. So as the new generation comes, the need for speed and digital goes immense fold. And that's something that the Gen X needs to learn from Gen Y. At the same time, the Gen Y needs to learn about the culture, the organization culture, about what are the things that have worked well, not worked well, experiment, innovate, challenge, but at the same time keep on learning and evolving. Actually, this reminds me of an example, and it's a story where experiment which was conducted, where you had 5 monkeys put in a room, and it was one of those typical Pavlov kind of thinking, where the couple of monkeys went up to, there was a banana that was put up at top of a steps, and there was a ringing that happened. Couple of monkeys, actually all 5 went up to get the banana, and as soon as they started moving up, there was ice cold water that was splashed. So they all stopped, they didn't go. Soon, couple of the monkeys were replaced by new monkeys, and these 2 new monkeys, obviously when the bell rang and the banana came, these 2 new monkeys started going. The other 3 held them. They said, no, you can't go. Soon enough, you replaced 2 more and 2 more, and then you had 5 new monkeys. The bell rang, the banana came, but none of them moved. None of them knew why they are not moving, but none of them moved. I think that's a paradigm shift that any new generation has to keep on challenging and saying, and maybe experience the cold water once in a while. Understand, learn, experience, and challenge.
All right. How soon can India have HR leaders to be in the boardroom, and also how soon can we have companies like Google and Facebook in the captive sense, not the corporate captive of that company in India, and we have employees aspiring to work for it?
2 different questions. So I think the first question in terms of HR in the boardroom, I think it's imperative for HR as a function to understand business very well. I think still at times I come across people who are hesitant on the numbers. We have to get over that, I think, across the board. And I see increasingly the good trend is most of the HR professionals are getting over that. They are very comfortable with both numbers as well as with a topic like learning and development. And that's a good positive movement. I think also what's happening is through professional bodies coming in, be it SHRM or NHRD, I think there's a sense of professionalism that is increased. Similarly, like what happened on the chartered accountancy side, I think similar thing is happening. We see greater certifications, be it GPHR or HRMP or other certifications that are coming to the fore. So what's happening is the HR professional is getting that opportunity to distill, refine and understand the business. I think that's the key thing which is happening. And with that, the dynamism which is there and the importance of HR, which everyone acknowledges, I don't have to repeat that, is obviously there. So combined with this is enabling, and now there are examples of people from HR getting into taking wider roles, including the role of a CEO, but we need to do far more of this. So that's on the HR front. On your other question of some of the companies and why the captive work is happening and not really pure development, I'll refrain from naming the companies, but I think the key part is that in India, when we talk of our premier institutes, as far as technology institute, a lot of the people go outside to work on, and actually they do the development work outside, sitting in US or other places. A lot of people sitting inside, we still don't have the culture and the climate of innovation as yet. Last year I was at Silicon Valley, and if you look at the valley, they've got a great environment, be it right from angel to VC to actually entrepreneurs, and you also have academics, and it makes a great loop that one can work with. So the entire ecosystem is there. Or even if one looks at Boston, not only California, but Boston also has a thriving ecosystem. I think in India, we are still taking the steps towards having the ecosystem. And now you start seeing that, but the more innovation that happens, more people will be excited to say that I want to do something innovative rather than doing run-of-the-mill thing. And that's when we start challenging, we start going up the value chain and doing furthermore roles, which is happening in a lot of organizations, but we'll see far more of that in terms of the innovation. So I think the risk-taking ability, when I graduated from a B school some 20 years ago, we had very few who actually went and did something on their own, a startup kind of thing. Now that trend has changed. So I see it very positive, and I think that will enable others also, pure technical people also, to join in and contribute in co-creating something out of nothing. And India will then take the lead.
Do you think leveraging technology to a great extent by HR would help? Because now we see not much is being done.
I would say not much is being done. HR does uses technology quite effectively.
No, this is, sorry to interrupt you, in concern with, like, for example, the multinationals are doing it. Like IBM was using PeopleSoft, I guess a decade back. It started off then, but now it's like the small SMEs or MSMEs, they are not using such software. So if you have to talk about the ecosystem, it has to start from the SME level.
Yes, it's I think an interesting point, Sapna, you raised. I think if you look at India, and I'm glad you classified, if I look at some of the multinationals, American or European multinational, or some of the Indian multinationals, they tend to, because they also have the money and they have the wherewithal to invest into these things. So I think it's easier for them to do it because they're larger. I think the smaller organizations, the HR has not evolved as yet. People do tend to say that it's still a one-man show and the one man calls the shot as far as everything, including HR. But I think it's a step of evolution. Like everything, that too will evolve very soon, and you will have smaller organizations also seeing the benefit. There are already some consulting firms that are doing work and acting as a outsourced HR business partner for these firms. Right. And so they are bringing in a lot of innovation and change. But you're right, it is far too less, and it needs to change very quickly. The technology adoption on the bigger multinationals is of course huge, including us, and we are a technology firm, including putting things on mobile, and we do help in whatever goes on mobile as well, being Ericsson. But I think these changes we will see far more happening, and with that and the telecom penetration, which is only increasing, and the cell phones which are only increasing, and the smartphones, you will see more and more of HR onto mobile.
All right. Anything new happening at Ericsson in terms of hiring? Any new projects, any trends?
Well, we are always looking at balance. Ericsson being headquartered in Sweden, we are very rational in terms of how and when we hire, but we are growing over the past few years that you would have seen in India. And globally also, Ericsson is in a steady state path. We are doing well. There are, of course, changes that are taking place as telecom changes, technology changes, and the same thing is happening with us as well. As besides our regular base station work, so a few years ago we were into mobiles. Ericsson was along with a joint venture. Earlier we also had a joint venture with ST Microelectronics. Now we don't have the joint ventures, but now we are evolving into the new areas, be it cloud, be it IP. So getting into newer spaces, which is there, and also helping on the software side for the telecoms. And we are, because of these changes that are taking place, we obviously look for hiring such people as well from the market, who will kind of help us lead the foray. Ericsson is number one in telecoms, and we imagine ourselves to be number one in these fields as well, besides the telecom and the services that we do so well.
All right. Any takeaways about the event?
I think I must congratulate Businessworld. I think it's a great event. HR is a topic which is here to stay. It is also a topic very core to everyone's heart. I think recently I was attending when the Prime Minister was talking about the National Skill Day and talking about how skill development is core for us going forward. And I think us as HR and you as media need to play a very important role in that, both of us really, because truly if we want to take India to the next level, then it is important for us to work towards it. So either as a HR function or as a media, and I think in that context having a topic on HR and a day which is dedicated to talking about the challenges, talking about how people are looking at HR, and I would say in future also how people are encouraging the skills and developing them for India to be truly productive. I think it will go a big way in us contributing to the success of the country.
Right. Well, India at present we are having a lot of success stories for the startups, and we are also seeing a trend wherein employees are aspiring to join startups with a hike of 50 to 60%, and they're also seeing a career there. So, what's your take on it?
I think it's Sapna. It's a if you roll back 10, 15 years ago, similar trend was there when IT companies were coming up, and IT companies and I used to work with a pure IT company earlier. Had its own ups and downs as well, and Y2K happened, and then some people kind of went in, and that's regular of any industry. Telecom went through similar one earlier, where you have a kind of a spurt, and then you have maybe a bit of correction that takes place, and then after that a bit of realistic.
However, Mr. Khanna, the IT and telecom companies had a complete strong background and a foundation, and up to an extent they were captives of MNCs in India as well. But these startups are just like 6 months old, a year, and so I think there's a difference.
I think so I haven't worked in a startup of late, but I can, but as an organization, when we get into new areas, the new areas do tend to be like a startup pretty much. I think for a lot of people, who my friends or others who I see in this area, it is of creating something new. It is the challenge of creating something new out of nothing, or and hence when I was talking about the innovation, that the innovation a bug kind of gets into you and you want to do something. For some it is just the lure of the money that may be there, not only in terms of the hike, but in terms of what may happen when some of the startups actually start getting listed. And for some it's just immersing themselves into the passion of what they do. I do not, a lot of times we tend to discount that. I think a lot of people are out there to make a difference as well, which is the great thing happening, and I think we need to give credit to that. Of course it needs to be tempered with a sense of maturity, but who doesn't make mistakes? We'll all go through it. So startups will also go through, and they will learn on their own and get bigger hopefully.